eINDIA Education Summit with a very important topic, that is, nurturing the school leaders of tomorrow. The session aims at empowering principals with organizational and leadership management skills, new approach for school management and administration with HR, finance, and brand management. It will also highlight significance of management tools. Apart from that, we'll focus on brand building, identifying faculty requirements, orientation, and faculty training. Last but not the least, role of ICT in school management. For the session, we have Lieutenant Colonel A. Shekhar, Principal, Atul Vidyalaya. Sir, I request you kindly join us. He has been result-oriented soldier educationist with over 25 years of holistic experience in the area of education, administration, leadership, and HR. He has led and mentored all-around transformation of a Kuwait Day ICSE school. Now I invite Mr. Samir Bora, Executive Vice President, Research and Development, Next Education India Private Limited. Mr. Bora has an experience of 14 years across various industries like education, internet and advertising, e-commerce, banking, telecom, and software engineering. His role has spanned product management, strategic leadership, client engagement, customer support, and pre-sales operation. Now I request Swami Sarupanan, Director in Charge, Chinmaya International Residential School, to kindly join us. Welcome, sir. Swamiji is a disciple of the world-renowned Master of Vedanta and champion of India's spiritual wisdom. He has done tremendous work in bringing out the essential wisdom and underlying unity of all religion through Vedanta and Guru Granth Sahib. It has won him a place among the daring pioneers of spirituality. His motivational seminars on management has earned him great respect at institutions such as Ford, Apollo, London Business School, and Harvard University. Now I request Mr. A. Murli Mukund, Chairman, Jubilee Public School, Hyderabad. He is the Director of Akhand Infratech India Limited and member of Infrastructure and Panel Confederation of Industries. He is also the member of HMA, Hyderabad Management Association, and member of Banking Insurance Committee. His achievement is pioneer in introducing smart board and e-technology for all the classrooms in year 2008 itself at Jubilee Hills Public School, which started trends of e-learning in Hyderabad. Now I request Mr. Shivanandar R. Koteshwar, Director, the Matra Academy, Bangalore. Professor Koteshwar works as the Director of PES Group, responsible for the Matra Academy Preparatory Co-Educational Residential School. He also works as a full-time professor in E&C department in PS School of Engineering and is responsible for VLSI Center of Excellence. He has experience of more than 16 years in IC design and EDA. He has worked as a director implementation group in Synopsys of 11 years. He has also worked with Intel Arcus as a design engineer. Now I invite Dr. Nirpen Kumar Datta, founder and principal, Mills and Bronson Residential School, Guwahati. He is the founder and principal of Mills and Bronson Residential School, Guwahati, and the founder of Honorary President of Grace iNet Solutions Private Limited, Guwahati. He is also the Honorary Director of Akash Institutes at Guwahati. Dr. Datta has done his schooling from Suang Government High School and pre-degree from Cotton College, Guwahati. We will have Dr. Kiran Singh, Principal, Mandsaur International School, shortly. Now I hand over the session to Lieutenant Colonel Shekhar to take it forward.
Hello, yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here on a very rain-affected Hyderabad day. Lovely to have each one of you here. And I'm delighted and honored to be chairing this session. After all the introductions are being done, and with a great amount to be talked about as far as school leadership and nurturing is concerned, we have a very diverse panel. And as you can see from our dresses itself, you can see how diverse we are. What this panel would try to do is to give some thoughts, and hopefully at the end of the session all of us would be a little wiser as to what nurturing means in terms of school leadership specifically, because all of us belong to that scholastic spectrum. The panel rules would be, each speaker would get about 8 minutes, and we'd request the speakers to conclude within those 8 minutes. And once those 8 minutes are over, we would try to have one, at best 2 immediate questions to the panelists. And once the panel discussion, the presentations by the panelists are over, we would throw the house open for a Q&A session. And myself being from the armed forces, somebody talked about discipline. We would make our utmost endeavor to finish the session on time. Hopefully, we will have a most interesting and interactive session. At the outset, I would request the gentleman sitting to the right of me, Swami Swarupananda, to open the batting. He is the director in charge of the Chinmaya International Residential School in Coimbatore, a very well-known school which has worked extremely hard following the enduring principles of the Swamiji for holistic and spiritual learning. We have heard a great deal about the school and the successes the school has achieved in creating a very different kind of citizen for India and even for those from around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the Swamiji. Your turn, sir.
Esteemed people, sorry. Should I close this down? Yeah. Members and friends on the dais, and all gathered here. Leadership is something that people say is born in people. However, all are not born leaders, and yet everyone is a leader in their own place. In Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna has said, Yadyadacharati sreshtaha tattat devetaro janaha sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadanu vartate. He's given the essence of leadership, that whatever a Sreshta Purusha, someone that people look up to, does, others immediately follow. Whatever means or principles he adopts in his life or she adopts in his life, others will follow. Therefore, the best leadership is always through example. And each one of us are leaders because someone or the other is looking up to us. And therefore, to make leaders out of people, all we have to make them is people of some value to others. Value I don't mean only by the internal values, but people find in them something that they will be inspired by. This Sreshta in school, very often when I was asking children, what is it that you find that in the education system is missing? And very often a common answer that I got from students was, we do not have role models. We do not have role models, and it became a task that they at least look up to their own parents as well as their own teachers as role models. How do we make these role models in school? That was the important discussion we had, that how do we create for our children role models that the children would immediately look up to. No doubt a teacher has to be excellent in their performance as academic teachers, but in their presentation, in their life behaviors, in their skills, how do they present themselves that children look up to them as role models? We had a lot of self-analysis, and teachers were made to sit and analyze it besides being given all the value-based knowledge from spirituality. But the important thing was that they should analyze themselves, introspect themselves, and see how can they be role model for the children. No doubt children admire teachers who can teach very well, but they admire and follow those teachers whom they begin to love also. In school leadership, we were thinking of how do we create these leaders, because many teachers who came in as teachers would only teach. The most important thing was to point out what is the vision. As a director, I think the most important function we have is that they are clear about the vision of the school. Swami Chinmayananda started schools to give children a complete holistic training, not only just academics, but the whole complete physical, emotional, intellectual, patriotic, all aspects of their life should be there. To create teachers who would give them that type of holistic upbringing was no doubt a great challenge, where today in education system a lot of emphasis is given just on marks, because after all they have to get to the best of universities and especially to the professional colleges. How did we make leaders into it? Was that one thing is we began to empower people. Those who are good at whichever job, to recognize their talents and to allow them to express themselves fully. As a director, we try to do that. Whatever they are good at, we encourage it. We allow their leadership skills in that to develop. And once they become confident in themselves, out of them is definitely born a good leader. Value systems go a long way, and of course, as our panelist was pointing out to us, that discipline when imposed on people is always hated. But discipline, when it is self-developed, is something that gives us freedom. The moment we have a discipline in our life, we have freedom. This type of self-discipline every leader must have, including, as was pointed out, maintenance of time. Swami Chinmayananda was an example of maintenance of time, and those type of discipline when a leader has, naturally is looked up at. So, discipline, giving them the encouragement and freedom to express themselves are two of the most important things that we try to develop in our school, that is Chinmaya International Residential School. Our principal makes sure that we find out what are the special talents of the people, because everybody cannot be a leader in every field. But if that we recognize and allow them to express themselves, give them the freedom to express themselves, from them are born good leaders. Our value systems are very important, because if the value systems are not good, such as honesty, today we are talking about so much corruption going on even in the education field. If these values are not there in the leaders, in the teachers, in the school management, naturally what happens is that the whole education system creates a dominoes effect. It creates a dominoes effect, and therefore the important is value system. That is why we find also that in our ancient systems, which can help us to build our future, three things was important when a student went to the school. When he was given the Upanayana, one thing that was given to him was the mantra to develop his intellect. Second was the values of brahmacharya, ahimsa and satyam. The values of self-control, non-violence and honesty. These were given to him, and a sense of responsibility. Once a sense of responsibility, each teacher feels I'm responsible for the generations to come in. This adds to what the generations will bring out. Thank you very much. Very briefly, I just wanted to talk about this. Hari Om.
Thank you, Swamiji, for very clearly articulating as to what a school should be from the context where he comes in. Role modeling, values, empowerment, leadership skills, confidence. And he ended it quite beautifully by talking about the Gayatri Mantra and ahimsa, non-violence and honesty. Something which each one of us would understand in the context of today's world. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful thoughts. We now have our next speaker, Mr. Murli Mukund, Chairman, Jubilee Public School, Hyderabad. The school he is part of mixes tradition with technology in the optimal way possible. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and welcome him to the dais. Let's hear what his interpretation of nurturing school or nurturing leaders of tomorrow would be. Your time starts now, sir.
I would like to address this from the management perspective, because I'm the chairman of the school, not the principal. I know less of academics, but most of management. So any good institution, I feel, you should have these four important aspects. One is the vision of the management, a strong leadership, a good teacher effectiveness, and a good effective student learning also, because the ultimate outcome is the student. So how it goes? So management vision, that's very important. All the academicians, all the principals have to see the management not as an adversary, but as a partner. Then I think they should move along together. Then you should have the good instructional leadership. Then teacher effectiveness, what I said so. Then student achievement. So ultimately the end product is student. So ultimately all of us were discussing it for the student's sake. Now there's a subtle difference between a good teacher and a good school leader. So a good teacher need not be a good school leader. A good school leader has to be essentially a good teacher. See, there's a fine difference, because what in my practical experience what happened, there's a good physics teacher, very confident, very committed. We offered her a higher post. She bluntly refused. She said, I'm very happy with my own subject, don't give me more responsibilities. But same thing, English teacher was there. So we thought, she has very good English, she can interact with the parents nicely. So we said, okay, we gave her the very good higher post. But that was a failure. She was a good teacher, but when it came to interacting with the parents, interacting with the children, having administrative duties, she was a total failure. And I lost a good English teacher and ended up with a bad administrator. So, first and foremost, she's a good teacher, but it's not vice versa. And a school leader should have clearly what her role is, or his role is. Lead the school staff to implement the management policies for delivery of quality education to the children. The important points are school staff, management policies, quality education, and children. So identifying school leaders. See, teacher, okay, is a good teacher, suppose she's confined to her own classroom with 30 or 40 students, teaches nicely, she's a good teacher. Then, but somebody should be a better teacher Then how do you tell them? Is a mentor teacher. She is beyond her classroom, beyond her 40 students. She takes care of the parallel teaching. She observes what is happening in the corridors, and she is very responsible. So we can call them as mentor teacher. We can elevate them to a mentor teacher. So this is a way we should identify teachers. So these are the administrative problems. Then there comes the master teachers. Okay, the mentor teacher was able to help the other teachers informally and help them in identifying the problems and teaching how to teach parallel teaching. So it's an informal way. But the master teacher is trained, formally trained to teach properly. So elevate them as a master teacher. So when a master teacher is the next step is the school leader. So instead more school leadership, more administration qualities, and all these things, you better increase their pay also. Because when your role, the responsibilities are more, they are doing a better duty, reward them so that they will have an aim. Instead of by increasing salaries on a seniority basis, you reward them like this. I think they should go on. So that is the individual teacher to come up. Now, what comes from the management? So management also encourages teachers. Okay, some teachers are docile, they don't come on their own. But when we identify teachers, we should first make them a project leader, give them assignment, and see that they succeed. Once they succeed, then the next elevation is make them a part of a team, give them a teamwork, and see how they perform. So make them a team leader. Then there comes a school leader, where like your school principal or whatever it is. Then strategic leader. So strategically means, I mean there should be part of the management team also, having more higher visions, higher achievement goals. So those other things. So this is where how we should encourage school leaders. And basically before becoming a school leader, you should know these things, the meaning and purpose of education. So what is education is not only syllabus and teaching. It includes sports, it includes values, it includes characters, interpersonal relationship. You should know what education means. And the purpose is to give good education to students and see the students perform, not only here, and become good citizens also, not only in their career also. Then the purpose of becoming a school leader. Why do you want to become a school leader? Do you have that passion? Do you have that commitment? You should introspect yourself. That is very important. Then you should also know what is expected from the stakeholders, like management, parents, children. Then you should have update on all the various teaching practices. There's so much of teaching practice going on. Education become a dynamic thing now. The old practices which were there earlier are not now. So earlier it was a Gurukul type of teaching. Then it was syllabus was never changed. For 5-10 years it was continuous. Now every now and then the syllabus changes. CBSE reforms come up. So many things are there. I think better stick to the manual thing. Luckily I had a printout of presentation. So you have to give me one more extra minute pause. Okay. So the technology is the blend. Now the teaching also, this learning also is not only happening from the school, it should happening from home also. So teachers, the leaders should understand that and take steps to encourage that also. That is the important role of a school leader. Then role of a school leader is mainly, one is a teacher, second is a trainer, then team leader. So trainer, why I identify, I read in some book, teacher is like a pencil and trainer is like an eraser. So whenever the pencil makes a mistake, the trainer will correct with his eraser, like a eraser, and see that the pencil again corrects and improves our knowledge. So that's a very good example I've got somewhere. And Bill Gates also in this respect he said, create effective high quality teachers in every classroom and learn how to create that in every teacher we already have. So already if you have teachers, try to train them. Don't always look for good teachers outside. So first thing is training our teachers. Then qualities of a good teacher, they should be able to frame curriculum, cultivate a team culture focused on student improvement, be knowledgeable and be enlightened, like Swamiji said, And they should have a teaching, technology, positive temperament, and the tenacity to withstand circumstances. Then they should have the art of delegation also. So delegation is very important. So you delegate decentralized work, but centralize the responsibility. And delegation multiplies productivity. Really, I have done that. In my school, we had various levels of delegation, and it's working well. And have continuous feedback system. So without feedback, nothing works. You're aiming at something blindly. Then you should spot talented school leaders also. And coming to the leadership, see, this leadership is different from politics, where they give a lot of false promises, they don't perform. Here, whatever the promises are given by the teacher are factual and actual. So you should be inspiring leadership. Like Swamiji again was telling, you should inspire, you should set an example. People should tend to follow you. So how can that become? You should like a vehicle where you are going with the headlamps on, and you should have good tail lights. So other people will follow, seek your tail lights. So that is the importance. And there's a balanced leadership. Yep. See, the situations then and now, earlier it was curriculum centered, now it is student centered. Earlier corporal punishment was there, now we don't have that. It's actual reverse punishments. Children are trying to punish us with guns and all these things like in America. So you should be careful, you should be able to manage all these things. And the social media, the misuse of Facebook and all those things, joint family, there was low sort of values were there, burden was shared among them. Now the total responsibility was teacher. Parents expect a lot from the teachers. Then the values. Earlier it was moral values, now it is material values. Then corruption, not only material, it's intellectual corruption also is there. Government interference there, like RT Act, CBSE, like the Supreme Court. Then shortage of quality staff. So some viewpoints before closing. So I would like to recommend discontinue teaching degrees by distance learning because there is no practical training. Then start exclusive training institutions for school leaders with more practical approach. Prepare 21st century teachers. Matching demand and supply of teachers. There's very shortage of pool of teachers there, and specific subject teachers like physics. You should have an institution where they teach physics, train teachers in physics or chemistry like that, and provide good pay and incentive structure for teaching community. So conclusion, if you want 1 year of prosperity, grow seeds. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow trees. If you want 100 years of prosperity, grow people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your thoughts. As technology failed, I am reminded of what happened when the former Secretary of State, the Joint Chief of Staff Chairman Colin Powell, they were about to invade Iraq. They had to have a conference. In that super security, national security place which they had, the phone was not working. They went around, tried everything else. Finally, one soldier came, broke open the ground, and he got a phone. With all the technology available, sometimes, as the gentleman sitting next was showing, we have our paper ready. That will help us a lot better. A large number of points were covered by Mr. Mukund. One point regarding Bill Gates, which was interesting. He put in a lot of money into having performance-based pay for teachers. That is his big hobby horse of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Finally, in an article, he said, all these parameters are right, but I am still not able to know as to what a good teacher means. But take me to a classroom, I will tell you whether we have a good teacher or not. There is more to education than technology. There is more to it in terms of tradition, values, and everything else, fundamentally the culture and the environment. With this background, we have our next speaker, Shivananda Koteshwar, Director, the Amantra Academy, a good friend of mine. We meet each other regularly in such summits, and his USP is the first real college preparatory school in India. Let's hear what he has to say. He is somebody very passionate in the field of education and who fundamentally gets himself involved in all aspects of a school. Over to you, Shiv.
Thank you very much. Good morning, audience, members, and friends on dais. I've been a regular visitor to the conferences, especially eINDIA. I think this is my third visit here. So most of the material what I'm presenting is what I've learned from the last few presentations which many people have done. So two things I want to touch upon. I don't have the depth and knowledge as most of the people who are sitting here. I'm very young to educational field. I just moved into the school 2 years back. Before that, I was in the higher education and corporate. So pardon my ignorance, if there are any. So when I was asked to talk for the session, I was given this 5 highlights. So I'm going to focus on 2 things. I'm going to talk about empowering principles with organizational leadership and management skills. And I'll just touch upon the brand building. It's a very big statement. It's a very loaded statement, what has been given as the 4th point. Brand building, identifying faculty requirements, orientation, and faculty training. To be very honest with you, nothing connects. But it's a nice sentence. So I thought I'll just touch upon this point. So according to me, I just tweaked what I found on the web. So leadership, there's a lot of discussion about leadership and management, and a lot of times we tend to get confused between the definition itself. So I just want to touch upon the real definition of a leader and a manager. First of all, leadership is all about getting to a state of resonance. So when we talk about resonance, it's a resonance that gets created when staff's aspiration, institute's requirements, and the learner's interest intersect. That state of resonance is the real leadership, according to me. The 3 things what I mentioned here, staff, institute, and learner, there's no priority order or anything like that. I just picked it up and I presented it like that. When we talk about stakeholders for educational institute, we always tend to talk about parents, kids, multiple things, institutes, principals, directors, chairmen, and everything else. For me, the only stakeholder is a society. So if we keep that in our mind and try to define the problem, for me, the difference between a manager and a leader is, some of the points I put here. The manager says go, the leader says let's go, which means he's involved in the activity which he's doing. Manager knows how to do things, leader knows what things to do. Manager gets others to do, leader gets others to want to do. So which means he's an inspirational, motivational speaker. The focus of a manager is on compliance. The focus of a leader is on commitment. So he has to make people commit to what they're doing. Manager is often defined as a taillight of the organization. Leader is somebody who's defined as a headlight of the organization, which means he creates the path for the organization. Manager does the things right. Leader does the right thing. Manager is always rule-oriented. Leader is outcome-oriented. Manager always ensures stability. Leader energizes the system. Manager manages changes. Leader creates change. Manager direct groups, and leader create teams. If you really look at it, the best definition I read somewhere, I forgot who said this, is manager works within the boundary and leader works with the boundary. And I think it's a very correct definition of a manager and leader. And if you really look at it, if you're expecting our principals to actually do both of these things, it's not easy. So that is why, for me, the real title, I was really impressed with the title, Empowering Principles with Organizational Leadership and Management Skills. Most of the principles actually come in with a very, very strong management skills, but not many of them have a very strong leadership skills. And as Swamiji said, there are born leaders, no doubt about it, but leadership is something which can be trained. You can train a person to be a leader. It requires a lot of effort, a lot of commitment for the person and from the organization. So if you're really looking at a person who will move from implementation to a formulation stage, which means a shift from a management to a leader, these are not 2 different transition levels. A manager has to be a leader has to be a manager all the time. I'm talking about a principal here, not a specific, in general, a leader. I'm talking about a specific title. A principal has to be both today. He has to be a person who implements things. He has to be a person who will formulate things. And if you're expecting this from one person, it is not an easy job to do. And these are 2 distinct jobs you're expecting one person to do. So what is really required? A principal requires a coach, a structured plan, and an absolute management support. Without that, no principal can actually do this, because the amount of time a principal has today to do the implementation part itself, takes away 100% of his or her time. So the remaining time, which means Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays, is when actually principal gets time to attend some training sessions, coaching classes, and everything else. So it's not an easy job to do, but without the management support, this is something which cannot be done. So that's one thing which I want to highlight. Then I pick up the second point, which is brand building, identifying faculty requirements. This is an image which I found on the web. All the images I've found is from the web. So the credit goes to the respective creators. Nothing is mine. It's all about changing how we do and say things. It's very important to actually realize the fact that what we communicate matters a lot. It can be about the institution, it can be about the principal, it can be about the students, it can be about the teachers. The communication is a very, very crucial part of any of these activities which has been described here. Before the session, when we were sitting on the dais, on the table over there, Colonel, a good friend of mine, asked me one question. He said, forget all this big paragraph of definition and introduction you have. Give me a one-liner of who you are and what you are. That is what I want to describe. What he asked actually was the brand value of the organization we were representing and nothing else. So in one line, can you represent your organization? In one line, can you represent yourself? I think that's a real definition of how do you define a value. The picture basically symbolizes how effective your communication is going to be, how you're going to eliminate the noise in the medium, how you're going to talk to your audience. Who are his audience? It can be teachers, it can be students, it can be parents, it can be society, it can be other leaders. A lot of times people tend to think branding is all about competition. Branding is about how better I am compared to the other school. Definitely not. For me, branding is not about getting your target market to choose you over the competition, because every school in every region has its unique value proposition, and I think it has its own space to survive and thrive in that particular space. It's actually getting the prospect to see you as the only service provider for their specific problem. Every parent who walks into the campus actually comes in with his or her own problem for the child, for themselves. They exactly know what they want for the child. So, for example, in my school, basically we say we are college preparatory school, which means we prepare your child for the college. It's a very, as somebody mentioned to me, it's a very heavy statement. Yes, it is a heavy statement, because when you say college preparatory, you're talking about academic excellence, you're talking about emotional, you're talking about life skills, your value system, the entire thing. So, for me, branding is not about competition. and first of all, I think, this is my last slide. So, when we talk about faculty training is a very, very small word for me. Faculty development is the right word. So, as I told you, it really matters how you define your programs. This is something which we have done. When we started our school in 2012, I got good subject matter experts who had a very strong learning and teaching pedagogy, and they had a fantastic classroom management skills. What we focused on is the next phase. 2 years we have worked with each and every teacher in our campus, basically on multiple other skills. These are leadership trainings, this is a psychometric trainings, this is multiple emotional trainings, multiple trainings have been given to them. What is my ultimate goal? 2017, I want my teachers to be completely skilled. When I say skilled, we have a program, 1 TED-Ed per week, 1 presentation per month, and 1 new skill per year. This is what we want every teacher to develop. So we're looking at a skilled teacher, we're looking at 21st century trainers, we're looking at our teachers being guest speakers and panelists in multiple conferences. We're looking at teachers to be mentors and coach. We want our faculty to be the thought leaders. We want our teachers to be the brand ambassadors. This is our goal. 2017 is what we have planned, and we will achieve it. And without the support from the management, none of these things will be possible. So I just want to highlight some of the things, what we have done, and what works when we talk about brand building or empowerment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shiv. A very enlightening set of thoughts and ideas. He talked about ignorance, and he talked about society vis-a-vis leaders, discipline, compliance, empowering the principal. Since I now talk as a biased person, I've always found Shiv to be very involved in picking up every other panelist or visitor's brain to pick up new ideas for his school. And the roadmap he has for his school, if it succeeds, we may have one of the best college preparatory schools we can ever have in our country. Thank you, Shiv, for your thoughts. We now move to the corporate side of things. I now invite Samir Bora, Executive Vice President, Research and Development, Next Education India Private Limited. Yet again, as I asked him in one word how to describe what he's doing, he said 5,000 schools, 5 million students we have impacted. Let us see how he has impacted them through his team and what are his thoughts. Samir Bora, your turn now. Please give him a big round of applause and welcome him to the dais.
Thank you. I will have a written speech. I see some of the speakers behind me who are much more eloquent than I ever will be, so please excuse this part. This is not my session. Oh, this is my session? Yes, okay. So, good morning everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak on this topic. I speak on behalf of Next Education India. We currently partner with around 5,000 schools and 5 million students, and our portfolio of products includes Teach Next, which is our school solution, Learn Next, our self-learning solution, Next ERP. We have English lab, maths lab, science labs. We have some stealth products also coming, which I'm not allowed to reveal right now. We are looking at the topic of capacity building of teachers and the need for teachers' adaptation with digital learning solutions. Let me start with some statistics. If you look at it, the number of children enrolled in schools, and this is 2009 data, so this is a bit dated, is around 227 million. Right? And this is only the number enrolled. Now, if you look at the pupil to teacher ratio, as of today, it's around 32:1. The RTE recommends an ideal ratio of 30:1. And if you just do the math, as of 2009, with the number of enrolled students, we are still short by around 500,000 teachers. So clearly there is a problem, right? I'm not going to go into deep into why is this a problem. All of you are aware this is a problem, right? What's the simplest solution? Increase the supply of qualified teachers. As a lot of speakers have said, it's not the easiest job and it takes a long time. It's probably a policy decision as well. I think the solutions that exist today are the teaching methodology, tools and techniques, and digital learning is one really important step in that aspect. Now, there are different ways, and I would say that digital learning has to blend with the conventional way of learning. It's not a substitute. We look at the teachers as catalysts and not, we don't seek to replace the teacher when we look at designing any of our tools. One specific aspect which I want to go a little deep into is educational data mining. So educational data mining takes into account all the interactions that happen on a school at a very micro level. So for example, if there is a quiz that a student is taking, then take that quiz inputs into a system. If the teacher is recommending a particular activity, then take that activity. What are the decisions that the school is taking? Combine a lot of these really small data points and come up with an algorithm which gives you a lot of big decisions as well as small decisions. So big decisions could be like in terms of what particular activity to invest in a particular school. Like should the school invest in a lab? Should the school go in for a remedial class? Should the school invest in a hobby club? A lot of those decisions should be based on data, as well as a lot of small decisions. So it's not just big data giving big decisions, but big data giving small decisions. And I'll go deep into some of these aspects a little later. So what do these activities actually end up doing, right? What does digital learning really impact things? So I classified it into three different stakeholders. So first is teachers, like what does it really help? So data mining actually helps you make those big decisions. Like the simplest example is like, do you wait till you have the summative assessment at the end of the quarter, or you have enough data points through the quarter, as well as you have a profile of other students who have been through similar paths to recommend what can you do to impact a particular student. One example that we usually give is that if a child is struggling in, let's say, in the first test in 8th standard, if you go back to the marks for the 7th standard, you will figure out that if the child was a little bit, if the child was struggling then then it's probably better to go back to 7th standard and make them revise those concepts rather than worry about what they were doing in 8th, because it's possible that their fundamentals are not strong enough at that point. Data mining also allows you to do cohort analysis, which allows you to bunch together groups of students. So you don't have to take individual decisions per individual student. You can actually club together a lot of decisions at that point. And digital learning, actually, one more thing which we've actually seen a lot in our range of schools. A lot of times, administrators actually have to work with different teachers. There might be a lot of qualified teachers, but there might be replacement teachers because the teacher is not well on a particular day or is on leave. And digital learning actually allows teachers who are not very conversant with the subject to actually be quite conversant with it for a few classes. They are not a replacement for a particular subject teacher, but if you don't have any option, it is better to have something than to let the class not happen at all. How does it impact students? See, one of the things that we've concentrated very strongly on is that we believe that different students have different learning styles. So the old chalk and talk method is one definite approach, but it works for the entire class. But if you look at audiovisual, if you look at hands-on, if you look at kinesthetic, different students have different learning things. There are a lot of new labs products on the market, and by labs I just don't mean the old school laboratory with a beaker and a pipette and different instruments. But it's a combination of digital and manipulative, so it allows you to do an experiment, it allows you to touch a physical model which shows you, okay, how does the lung work, how does the diaphragm work, and then it allows you to do a lot of simulation. So what happens if you increase the pressure here? What happens if you add a different chemical here? A lot of those questions, rather than forcing a child to go through a standard A, B, C, D, E path, it allows you to actually say, okay, what if I don't do this? What if I do something else? It is like in a class of around 40 students, if the only option is for the teacher to answer that question, very soon the student will not be able to ask those questions. A lot of students have different styles. Labs allow you for each student to actually work on their own and ask those questions. So I think one more thing that again which is really important to understand is it is important to figure out how does the teacher view the technology, right? It cannot be that you build technology which actually forces the teacher through a very steep learning curve, as well as makes them uncomfortable in front of the class. So one of the things that we invested in, for example, is for our digital learning solution is a remote, right? The remote means that the teacher does not have to stay next to the blackboard or the whiteboard, the digital whiteboard, while the class is in action. So the teacher can actually move around the entire class and control the whiteboard. It's just like a TV remote, right? The TV remote looks very complex, but once you've just become used to it, it's just like a TV remote. It has a few buttons, right? And what that allows is that the teacher can actually move around the entire class without really getting stuck to the whiteboard. So if the student has a particular option, you can actually navigate back to whatever you were learning earlier. Yeah, and content must be such that teachers actually add value rather than you getting to replace the teacher. Another example is in-class assessments. So for example, what happens is that the teachers actually administer a test. There is a digital instrument with 4 buttons where you can press A, B, C, D. And at a glance, what happens is that all the assessment questions are calculated. And the teacher understands, oh, there are 2 types of students. Half of them have actually got the answer right. The other half have got the answer wrong by exactly one particular aspect. That means that half of the students, sorry, my phone has told me it's 8 minutes. So what happens is that the teacher actually understands that, oh, roughly half the class has not got it and is getting confused at a particular moment. Now, rather than wait for those classes to get over and the assessments to get done, the teacher at that point in time can evaluate and say, oh, this is probably where some people are getting confused. Here's how we do it again. So that's it for me. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity again.
Thank you, Samir. How technology can make a huge difference, and they have made the difference. Interesting statistics. At best, 18% of the students who pass class 12 enter college in India. 1/8. These are the best of Planning Commission and HRD Ministry statistics. At the level of class 9, just 37 out of 100 students make it to class 9 or 10 in India. we living in an air-conditioned hall with everything technology can offer, perhaps should reflect on page 7 photograph in the Hindu today, where we had children sitting on the ground with water all around them. Can the school nurture leaders of tomorrow who have solutions for these problems? That's something which we have to look at very carefully. Thank you, sir, for your contribution. We now have Dr. Datta from the Northeast. Now, the Northeast is a place where very few of us do fully understand what happens, the seven sisters and everything else. We know about the Brahmaputra, we know about floods, we know something about our neighbors. Dr. Datta is running the first exclusive public school modeled residential school in the Northeast. And let's hear what are his struggles and how he looks at the nurturing of the school leaders for tomorrow. Please put your hands together for Dr. Datta. Time starts now, sir.
Respected Colonel Sekhar, esteemed members in the dais and the distinguished gathering. I'll delve on this school leadership and management styles. There's a transformational change over the last 20 years because of technological innovation, globalization and migration, and the landscape of the school has changed, where the old model of administrative public style of running the school is now rapidly being replaced by the new public management style of functioning, where we see that the shift, a paradigm shift from that of prevention to, from that of intervention to prevention is happening. And how do different institutions need to address to this change, and how the school leadership has to really transform to meet up to this transformational change, which is characterized by market-like mechanisms, by managements which have become more flatter, decentralization, and more of compliance and more of accountability. Now, what is this change? I could identify not less than 13 of these changes from 20th century learning to 21st. These are all. And these are all, which needs no explanation because we all are aware of. Now, what is the shift that is making the role of the principal different, which is based on the action and behavior? Now, starting with the very instrumental work by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development on a report called Improving Leadership in Education, what can be seen is that this shift, quite popularized by the US when in 1980s they started this large-scale, the policy for large-scale improvement of schools with the slogan of learning for all. The use of, rapidly the use of the term of instructional leadership. Now the old system of administrative leadership is now, again, it is not mutually mutually exhaustive, but they can blend together, and this is seen in the various indices that has been clubbed together in observing the behavior and actions of the modern school principal. So the management school goal index, the instructional index, the direct supervision, which comprises of the instructional leadership style, and the administrative style, which is accountable and bureaucratic management. And the research paper shows, like in the right side, top of the quadrant, when we can see that the high score in instructional leadership and the high score in administrative leadership, and at the left lower side we see the lower score in instructional and administrative leadership. Now when we talk about instruction, then the focus is on instructional core. Now many education policy makers, practitioners and researchers talk about this instructional core, and the core is the heart, and here these three elements are important: the teacher quality, the rigor of the content, and the students as learners. And there has to be, for an instructional leader, the emphasis on how to see that there is an interaction in the core, which implies that the student, the content, and the teacher should be always interacting in the context of teaching and learning in any period of time. It is observed that in many cases that in schools there is in lower classes especially, there is a interaction between the student and the teacher, but content is not much there. In the senior classes, it is seen that there is an interaction between the teacher and the content. The teacher is seen to be giving an intellectual workout in front of the students, but everything is going over the head. So any investment in the content, or any investment in the teacher, and any investment in the students has to happen all together. If the quality of the content is rigorous, then teacher training is required, and if the teacher training happens, the students also has to be trained and motivated in such a way through scaffolding and other means, so that they are able to understand the curriculum rigor, not just solve the, not just to find the correct answer. Otherwise, what is hoped for will not be achieved. So, what is expected from today's principal is to have an expanded approach of taking into the high points of instructional leadership and administrative leadership, wherein the principal becomes a learner, lead the process of learning, and does not become what Peter Senge says, an authoritative, does not adapt to an authoritative style of administration or management, but takes the course of learner-centric management, where the principal and the team is collectively learning, where there is a spirit of inquiry in the institution, where there is an element of surprise, an element of search, and where who is learned is not important. What is important is that it is seen that everyone is acting as a learner, and everyone is looking for something where the answer can come only through collaborative and collective enterprise. So now, from the top to run down bottom kind of an administration for a principal, is not exemplary, what is expected, that an expanded form of a leadership which is both managerial and which is both instructional, and the principal remains in the present context, ideal context, is the sole dispenser of knowledge and wisdom, and who is also freed from the feeling that he has to provide all answers. Thank you for the patient hearing.
Thank you, sir, for talking about instructional leadership, which is now a very common term which is being used in most places. The Americans, by introducing the No Child Left Behind Act, have made money a very important aspect of the teaching learning process. Any school which complies with certain standards in the NCLB Act, they get more money. And then we have pay for performance, a lot of other things happening. It is to be remembered that 50% of all school children in the United States drop out for various reasons. And only about 30 to 40% complete their college education. Here in India, we have at best 17 to 18% getting into college with the kind of education we are offering. We have one more panelist expected, Dr. Kiran Singh. For some reason, the traffic or anything else, we'll wait. If she's here somewhere, she can come on to the dais. Otherwise, we'll proceed with the rest of the conversation. It's always advantageous to be a session chair. The time, tell others that you have 1 minute to go, and hopefully I can pinch some of the time which the panelists have shared it for me. I'll request the Swamiji to cut me short if I go beyond my allotted time. I hope to finish it before that. From my side, both as a session chair as well as a panelist, is to try and bring in a different view. Having been a proud officer in the Indian Armed Forces and bringing the context of what happened in Uttarakhand just a few days back, I thought it is appropriate to link both and try and bring a context to leadership, the way the military looks at it, and what some of us can learn, what I have been lucky enough to be part of. The armed forces taught me everything about leadership, what I know today. But the schools, the students, the teachers have taught me even more. The armed forces, the ones who started the concept of management, have moved forward, and remarkably they are becoming much flatter structures. Let us see how the management, the leadership ethos of the armed forces can be brought into our methods of service, and how we can go in and create better leaders for tomorrow. It's not coming? It's not showing itself. She produced great leaders. All the photographs are those from the Uttarakhand tragedy. What happened there? Am I blocking you now? This is a great photograph. This is a human bridge made by the Jawans. The bridge has gone off. You can see very voluntarily they have done this. And they move forward. What is written to the left of is easy for all of you to read and understand. I found this truly moving. Having been to Kedarnath myself, how difficult the treks there are, and once these bridges etc. are washed away, how difficult it would be, and how innovatively the Jawans as well as the officers have created a human bridge. You can see people walking up. Had the armed forces not been there at that moment, our understanding is thousands more would have died. And there, without any questions, with the discipline which we think is essential, we are not talking about compliance. We are not talking about obedience. The term discipline, the Swamiji pointed out quite eloquently in his first few minutes of the conversation. It comes within. Initially, it might be forced. It has to become a habit. It has to happen automatically. You don't have to be told to do this. I always make this comparison. You have a small dog, sit, stand, sit, stand. It's often compliance and obedience. Self-discipline, can we nurture it? And how is it being done? Then of course, how those photographs play it up and how people have been picked up, and you can see not one service officer, not one Air Force officer, not one soldier is looking into the camera. We are all very fond of publicizing what we do. Perhaps something for us to introspect. The simplest of questions: are we likely to see business leaders placing the well-being of their shareholders and employees above that of their own? Present indications post what we have seen around does not make it for encouraging reading. And then we come down to that term, the conscientious obligation to serve. It's tough in this I, me, myself world. And believe me, every generation next believes that the previous generation does not know what it is doing. It has happened from Socrates downwards. The previous generation criticizes the newer generation. And we are in the business of training youngsters for a future which we ourselves do not know. Do we know how the world will be 5 years, 10 years from today? Absolutely not. I do not know. And with this background, we are taking a leap in the dark as we are preparing those leaders. What stays with them are the value systems and the holistic education we can give them. It is rather goes beyond Facebook likes and dislikes and action based on what they think the internet, Google tells them. The simplest of questions: do you find value in putting people first? The last couple of slides. The in-between part, we have tried to take it from Devdutt Patnaik's famous book, Business Sutras. We were lucky enough to have him in our school, and he spoke about the cultural aspect and how he uses mythology. He's the chief belief officer with Kishore Biani's group, and he spoke quite well. How do we link up the mythological aspects and what management is? And how do we move this forward in terms of a scholastic scenario? And the biggest challenge a school leader has today, with due apologies to the ladies in the audience, 80% of our school teachers are ladies. I run a school. Out of our 70 staff members, almost 60 of them are ladies. Do we have it in us to be able to nurture them from the cultural context in which they come from? When I am sick, you are tending to your patients. When I am tired, you are promoting an energy drink. When I am hungry, you are catering in a 5-star hotel. The rest of it is easy enough. In the Indian context, The school teacher who is a mother, she is a mother first, a wife next, a daughter-in-law third, and after that she becomes the teacher in her spare time. How do we manage this in an increasingly active world where the demands are increasing by the hour? This is a practical thing which we thought would be relevant. And our final slide, what goes through the mind of a teacher when, that's it, sir. That's my last slide. What goes the mind of a teacher during his or her first year in a school or in a new establishment? Are we good enough to rejuvenate them from the disillusionment they face as the system starts? This is the school I am part of, and I am extremely proud to share with you this entire presentation has been done by our teachers. I just gave them the topic. They were the ones who did it for me. And that perhaps tells you more about what those teachers want to be rather than anything else. Thank you very much for your patience. I think our next panelist has not come as yet. We do have a few minutes, Pragya. How much time do we have? Half an hour. Good, great. We can have a Q&A. If the audience has got any questions to ask any of us, we'll be delighted to answer. Can we have the mics going around, please?
I'm Nandita Mishra. I'm the Deputy Head of KIIT International School, Bhubaneswar. And my question is to the Professor Shiv. I didn't get your entire name, sir.
Shiv Koteshwar.
Yeah, Professor Shiv Koteshwar. You mentioned somewhere in the list of the roadmap that you see for your faculty, you say you want to shift from faculty training to faculty development. It had some very nice words, and I'm very impressed. But when you talk of, what you visualize for your teachers or your faculty, what exactly are you looking at in terms of, creating that path to develop faculty? Because all of us in schools have this problem that we are looking to create teachers who want to go to the next step of the ladder, but somewhere we are stuck. Because there are very, very strong preconceived notions that teachers come into schools, and especially with the new schools, they come in with the experience and the baggage of the old system that they have been part of. So what are you doing differently that you are so optimistic about it?
Couple of things. One, the reason why I don't like to use the word faculty training is for that particular thing, because it's a very canned representation of what a teacher wants, and this is something which is usually defined by the management. In our school, what we have done is we basically have talked to individuals, try to understand what their career aspiration is, try to see how much of it can be accommodated within our training program itself. So when we started doing that, it actually went beyond the realms of training itself. And another thing which many schools which I have visited in Bangalore or outside also have done a mistake of trying to cater the entire training needs within the school itself. We identified all the training requirements, what is required by the school. We partnered with people outside our school. I have actually gone to other schools, which a lot of people think it's a competition, but in fact, I've talked to the directors of many schools in Bangalore, where we actually have the parents deciding between my school versus his school, where the director was very, very willing to actually host a joint training session for our teachers, and we've done it very successfully. So the teachers actually love the aspect of this part of it. So that's the reason why I call it as a development. So it is not just coming out with a grand plan. I think as a management, it's very important for us to support it and also, stretch out to other institutions within our region itself who can actually partner with us on some of these trainings. And I think that's one of the biggest things which we have achieved in the last 2 years. Yeah, I think we have a next.
I'll get it going. Ma'am, it's a good question. The bigger point we look at is into ourselves. Teachers and principals, we are among the most rigid people in the world. Can we look into it ourselves? We are questioning the teacher. We say we don't want to change. We are very comfortable in that chalkboard kind of scenario, and we resist change like mad. The first part would be how well you convince them to change those aspects. And having been in an establishment where change comes very difficult, the armed forces, it's first working on the mindset which is more important rather than anything else. And once you have that core group working, then things start to flow much better. Yes.
One more thing, you also mentioned about they come in with a lot of baggage, pardon my word, but what I have seen is most of the best teachers, experienced teachers, are the ones with this fantastic baggage. So the challenge was actually not to, tell them to discard everything what they've done in the previous schools or what they've been doing. The challenge was trying to upgrade them, right? So what we found out was it was much easier actually to put a junior teacher with them rather than trying to make them learn everything what we want them to learn on ICT, for example. So we have a pair up kind of a session where we have a junior teacher who handles everything which has to be done with technology, and this teacher is a person who actually knows the content. So just because a person talks well, can use the computers and other things, might not be a good teacher at all. So we need to have this blend, and we will always have this blend. Very good teachers might not be comfortable with technology, and it's perfectly fine with us, and we have to acknowledge that. I think that's one of the biggest thing we need to do.
Any other question before we get to the last panelist? Yes. We have more questions, please. Anyone else? I think the
while it is very desirable to have a personalized attention to every child and have a personalized evaluation of every child before we go ahead to plan ahead, how do we go about this educational data mining at all?
right. Yeah, interesting question, ma'am.
Thanks, ma'am. So I think, see, a lot depends on the expertise that people bring in. What I have seen in practice in the field is that a lot of back-end data is actually collected. A lot of algorithms and models are brought upon, and what you do is you actually go back to past data and try and test those models. And once you have those models, what happens is that the model will spit out a few recommendations. And I don't think we are at a stage where the data or the model is alone sufficient. So what we highly recommend is that the teacher be there, and especially if it leads to career counseling or career decision making, the teacher, the guardian or the parent and the student get together. Because like children's minds are very fragile. If you tell them something very exciting, they will say, oh wow, this is exactly what I want to do. But it needs a lot of nurturing as well as a lot of milestone analysis to check that they are actually on the right path and they are enjoying and they are actually good at what they are doing. It's not just one recommendation made at grade 5 which lasts for the rest of the school years. Absolutely, it has to work with the teacher's guidance because the teacher knows them on a day-to-day basis. Not all data points are collected.
Good answer. There was a question. Yes, sir.
To add values rather than replacing teachers using digital content. How do you ensure that? We have experimented this digital content in Bangladesh. I am from Bangladesh, but we have found difficulty. But because the teachers and students they don't feel or it's managed in such a way that they feel it's not a supplementary tools. It's a primary tools. So how do you ensure that this is a supplementary tools or it's not to replace teachers in classroom?
No, it's actually a good question. We actually have some of our content running in behind our ICT tool, right? So our ICT tool does play animation. Now, what we actually do is we support the teachers with class plans, and our animation is not a video which will last forever. So what happens is that after a sufficient time in the content, when we feel that yes, it is right time for the teacher to interject, the animation actually pauses. It will not go on its own. So you cannot have a situation where the teacher can leave the class and come back after half an hour. Similarly, what we try and discourage is animation which is basically a set of, which is just a set of points which all that people have to do in class is just to note down from the lecture. If that is all that has to be done, you might as well print a handout and give it to the students, right? So we try and discourage animation which is just encouraging rote learning via different mechanisms. And we also encourage teachers behind the scenes. So we do a lot of help in terms of teacher training as well as in building class plans, building activity plans that allow teachers to go beyond what is visible on the ICT. So it does require a little bit of thought from the content design stage, and we have instructional designers who look at all these things. But it's a two-way street, and I agree with the premise. The premise is that the teachers are not to be replaced. The teachers are to be empowered to take it forward.
The point which we have to understand is we cannot take it off the shelf and place it in the school. What we often do, and it's easier for the content providers to do, the same student in Bombay will be much higher. That's why sometimes these entrance examinations, which is common for the nation, do have its pitfalls. And what he points out is there has to be real collaboration between the content provider, the school, the teacher per se, to come out with what is the ideal content for your context, rather than making it common, which is what becomes the primary source. Thank you for your question. Thanks for your answers. Yes, sir.
Mention of No Child Left Behind Act. Almost after a decade now, it's this National Assessment of Educational Policy that clearly indicates almost a failure of No Child Left Behind Act in the last 10 years. The only 2 areas of math and reading are being assessed. It seems to be a failure. I was not very sure whether you are advocating any such policy to be transplanted straight from a country like United States. Just now you said what applies to Leh doesn't apply to Kanyakumari. So how can that No Child Left Behind be applicable to a country like ours, where indigenous system of education is much more successful?
Right. No, thank you for your question. You got me wrong here. I was just paraphrasing what the last panelist said in the context of what he described as instructional leadership. India is unique. India has got its history, everything right. We have to find out solutions in our context. We require to pick up a few things which are being done right, but transplantation is always a failure. The No Child Left Behind Act also, although started off by Mr. Bush, is now followed by Mr. Obama at various levels, is a failure because it tends to work much more on compliance, and the more complied you are, you get more money. In a recession-filled economy, the money becomes important. You add Mr. Gates into it, who educates performance for pay. You have a big cocktail which can explode any time. They are having shortage of teachers, huge number of issues are coming up. No, I am not advocating it at all. We should have solutions in our context. I myself have a lot of questions on the way the right to education is being implemented today. We have a lot of issues at it. It's a good thought, but it's a very badly made out act with a lot of loopholes. And it is not working the way it is envisaged to be worked. So we have a lot of work to do, sir. Thanks for your question. We'll take one more, two more, three more. After that, the last. Whom are you asking?
I'm asking you, sir.
Me?
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay.
And because that is not really, taken care of. Like if a child, moves from one state to another, there is a huge difference in the, syllabus for the same class. So that is a challenge which I faced when I was in school. And again, even now, even after so many years, it's just the same. And second focus area is that our children are not really trained on life skills. See, when you go out of school or you come out of college, they're really not able to face any of the real life challenges. And it is only through a struggle, and for every in every role they are going to play when they come out of their, graduation or even out of school. So every role, whether they are playing a role of their being a daughter or being a professional or being a housewife or whatever. So, I mean, the life skills is something which is really missing in our education system. So that is one thing.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, now,
maybe not a basic education, but maybe a degree level education. Some universities are offering, and our Distance Education Council is giving some recognitions, and IGNO is one of the premier institutions. Right. So how we have to see about this distance education in future, and how it can be made
okay.
more
There's one
success.
more question.
Now, what the children see around is corruption, and there is a dilemma. So how do we go about it, this challenge? Thank you.
Yes. Now quickly we'll cover before I hand over to Swamiji. Firstly, ma'am, your questions are valid. What you said are valid. Life skills and values, I will request the Swamiji to answer. The panelists talked about distance education, not stopping it per se, but what the panelist meant in the context of his conversation with you was, how can we make the quality of the distance education be at better? In a country like India, with the kind of illiteracy we have, quote unquote, we require to do a lot more. With about 12 to 15 lakh teachers required now, even before RTE comes into play, we require to find out innovative methods to have teacher education done better. However, I'm sure all of us would agree, the present B.Ed or M.Ed curriculum takes us nowhere, any which way possible. And as far as the common syllabus is concerned, ma'am, there are too many pros and cons about it. Having one common syllabus or curriculum right across India, I have my strong views on it, because what is contextual for somebody in Srinagar is not necessarily contextual for somebody in Coimbatore or in Valsad or in Bombay. Some amount of commonality is required, but beyond that, do we require a standard robotic kind of environment? I have my questions on that, but we cannot move forward because there is a lack of time. I request the Swamiji to answer the question on life skills and values.
Very briefly, you're absolutely right. As I started off by saying, the children find that there are no role models today, or very few role models that they can be inspired by or imitate. Yet we cannot say that there are none. However, whatever upbringing we give to the children, we make them value the values themselves. And when we put value to the value itself, when they understand that it works, and the most important thing is that at least in the school where they are growing up, we give them an environment to live these values. And once they have lived these values in their formative years, we hope that they will keep up to that values. We have seen that in our lives, whatever upbringing that we get, we kind of hold on to that, even though the environment might prompt us into corruption or not living these values. But if the solid foundation is given in schools, where, as I said, the value for value they discover and they give an environment to grow in, it should stand them for long.
Thank you. That's a good answer. Ma'am, I'm short of time. I'll now request Dr. Kiran Singh to make her presentation. Please, ma'am. Dr. Kiran Singh is a PHU, and she is the principal of the Mansoor International School in Madhya Pradesh. The time starts now, ma'am.
A very good morning to everyone. Myself, Dr. Kiran Singh, heading a school in remote area of Madhya Pradesh. Because of the professional requirement of my husband, I have to keep moving. And I think I'm lucky enough to at least address the need of the children who are belonging to the remote area, those who are away from ICT and all, and they really need a lot of care. So, nurturing the future, here's the preview. I'm just dividing the presentation into 3 parts, and it's basically based on my experiments and the experiences what I have gone through my years of service. These are the places I have served. I don't have to go much in detail, and it is the stakeholders which we are going to describe. We've already discussed by the panelists, and really I'm sorry that I couldn't hear them because of some heavy traffic and other problems in the city, and I couldn't reach on time. So these are the stakeholders where the students, parents in the institution as well as the teaching faculties have to be looked after. Empowering teachers, it is only that at the boss level where the boss is not to what to do. It is for the leaders to show how it can be done. So as a head of the institution, we are supposed to look after this aspect, that the teachers or the nurturing the future leaders should be in such a way that they get enough time and space to cultivate the values and the required qualities to pass it on to the next generation. And the stakeholders, what I have seen throughout the time, that it is the educational change which impacts a lot, and where we need inspiring trust and be a good role model, what they have spoken about it just now. We have to decrease the isolation, whatever the gaps between the parents and the institution, teachers as well as the parents, or the students as well as the teachers. These are the gap areas. We have to really remove it and move on. Challenges what we have faced throughout, it is at the stakeholders like the students level what we have seen. That future is totally unclear most of the time. You see the unemployment, the way it is rising. This year only I am seeing the trend in my school that children are not opting for the science. This is basic. They are going for the commerce. It is just because they've got the feeling that future is not so safe in the science stream, rather going to the commerce stream. Awareness, it is at the varying degree, long gestation period, overnight miracle can't take place, no quick fixes there. Parental support is there. Sometimes they are genuinely concerned, sometimes they are very casual, and most of the time we find they are just not bothered in such areas. So bringing them to that platform and really taking care of such needs where the children and the parents both can be looked after. The counseling is the one aspect that has to be taken regularly. And yes, in those areas, the good HR, like most of the B.Ed and M.Ed, they goes for the government jobs. We don't get the trained teachers, but yes, most of the time, untrained teachers also excellent. They prove excellent faculties to run the institution or your need. And most of the time, we find the coaching centers are the dream sellers, the corporatized systems which are really available in the city, really harming to that extent where we are sometimes challenged how to remove such kind of obstacles from our teaching line. And like factors of the leadership, nothing to say much about it. It is most of the time you see the leaders, if the communication is good between the student and the teachers, as well as same as a leader for myself or my teachers, the communication makes a lot of difference. You can pass on your instructions, you can really look around what is going on, and if the good communication is there, then there is hard. Most of the time we find hardly any problem exists. We really solve the things or the issues then and there. Basis of leadership, naturally it is based on that what a person should be, what he should know and what he can do. It is all kinds of characteristics, traits, professional requirement and motivation level, which is the most important aspect we need. Experiences and the experiments of mine have said that yes, empowerment, what we are talking of the nurturing, Veer Bhogya Vasundhara, it is rightly so. The Veer doesn't mean that we can fight. It is who can fight with the evil system of the society, what the teacher has said, the corruption. We have to empower our students who are empowered teachers, where teacher has to be inculcated with the right kind of values and the soft skills, and the training is much more required. Organizational leadership, yes, the willingness is required to experiment, give the space and time to the people. And nurturing school leaders, it is the consensus which requires every time. We have to have several meetings, we have to talk it out, the problems and the issues of the day-to-day basis, and we have to remove those things from it. Training formulas, what I have throughout followed, that is organizational design, location and population. It is always based on that. Like city school and the schools which are really locating in the hi-fi city like Hyderabad, Delhi or Bombay. We can't compare with those cities, but yes, based on the location and the local requirement, we have to go for the every time change formula of running our institution, taking the need of the stakeholders as well as the other parents and the institutional requirement. And with the weighing pros and cons, choosing between the options, qualitative strategies and the risk analysis, of course, we have to do that. And we have to always remember that HR is the one thing which is the most valuable resource and they have to be given enough time. Now here are the success sutras which we have followed. The education economics law, it is the time of commercial things to be weighed. Here the customers are the students and the parents, they have to be really taken care of. Comfort zone we have to provide for them, and the opportunities, yes, is a child whose mind is like a wet cement, whatever falls on it, it leaves an impression, it is rightly so. So parents, they always look for a direction. HR, not fully qualified, but we have to make them at least competent enough by organizing workshops, seminars, sending them to the CBSE workshops and all, and that is we are already on to it. Nurturing leadership, we don't have to talk about it, that whether leaders are born or made. It is without involving in the fundamental questions. Leadership is requirement vary, but leaders' ability to adopt to change and overcome the challenges is what will entail the nurturing. Gen X and the Y, the present generation, the future generations are very different from what we are. Strongly believe in work. They always believe in flexible hours. Being open and truthful, energetic, promising, have ability to lead and can be found in everyone that we can't challenge. And that is, leadership is an action, not a title. It is a promise which we make to the people. Way ahead, we have to always reverse the challenge. Synchronized everyone. HR development is the most important part. Incentive to the teachers, whoever or whatever we have to move ahead with that. Merit-based opportunity to be provided to everyone. And parents, of course, they need a